Welcome to Elevate 2025. I'm Dr. Timothy Beck with Intertech Consulting, and today we're going to talk about going from thick to thin in PowerBuilder 2022. It's a case study of taking a PowerBuilder application which interfaces with a thick desktop client and migrating it to interface with a thin cloud-based solution using the REST API. Before we get too far, we need to show you the disclaimer. I'm sure you've seen this before, but just in case, I'll leave it up for a few seconds so you can read it. For our case study, we're going to cover both the problem and the solution in enough detail for you to have a clear understanding of where we came from, where we ended up, and how we got there, but not so much detail that you're bored. We start with the problem, which requires that we talk a bit about the software we're connecting to, OnBase. We also talk a bit about how the application was developed and the technology we started with, which turns out to be both good and bad news. On the solution side, we'll cover the business requirements, which included maintaining the original functionality. Of course, we migrated to RESTful web services, so we'll show you what that looks like. And as you might guess, that wasn't easy. There were quite a few roadblocks and obstacles that we ran into. In the end, we made it all work together, and you'll get to see just how we did it. Before we start, just a little bit about me. I've been an IT consultant and computer and software engineer for more than 30 years, much of that time using PowerBuilder. I did spend 10 years as a professional classroom trainer at both the university and adult education levels, part of that time with Sybase and PowerSoft. I also spent a number of years working as a consultant translating end-user requests into actionable items for technical staff, including me, to make a reality. As I mentioned, I've been working with PowerBuilder for a long time. I started with PowerBuilder 1.0 beta, and I'm currently working with PowerBuilder 2025 on a project. I also worked with most databases, including Informix, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, and DB2. Some of my recent projects include the one we're talking about today, migrating from OLE to REST API. I was also responsible for developing and maintaining a reporting and auditing application for a major bank, and performance tuning a claims management system for a major insurance provider. If you'd like to reach me directly, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I work for Intertech, the oldest and largest consulting firm in North America specializing in PowerBuilder technologies. We focus on the intersection of technology and business for companies seeking a competitive advantage. We are the first company in North America certified by Sybase and Appian to sell and support Appian for PowerBuilder and now PowerServer. As you can see, we are and have been partners with some pretty big players, including PowerSoft, Microsoft, Sybase, and Appian. We do it all: architecture, consulting, education, programming, and project management. Let's dig in. The problem, in a word, is support. Or really lack of support. As software companies do, support for the thick client software in use was ending, meaning a new solution was required. Let's break it down. Our client's application, a document management system developed in PowerBuilder over many years, interfaces with Highland's OnBase product through OLE. OnBase is a content management system. The application is quite large, includes several supporting applications. I tell you this so that you are aware that migrating away from PowerBuilder isn't an option. That solution requires more time and expense than the client has available. As I mentioned, support for the thick client version of OnBase is ending. To make matters worse, the cloud-based web services version of OnBase isn't plug-and-play, as there's not a one-to-one correspondence between the OLE methods and the RESTful web services. To further complicate matters, the business requirements state that the OnBase solution or the application continue to work as is, meaning that from an end user's point of view, nothing has changed. We also require that both the thick and thin versions be available to users. Just a quick primer on OnBase, Highland Software's enterprise content management system. It was designed to securely store, retrieve, and version documents and files. It supports document workflow and lifecycle management, and a customizable structured system for organizing and classifying data, similar to Microsoft SharePoint. It started as a thick client desktop solution, and Highland now provides a cloud-based solution. Using OnBase as a document management system, the client built and added on to their PowerBuilder application. The backend database is Informix, and the client built-in PowerBuilder uses OLE to interface with OnBase. The folks who developed this application created their own reusable components. They did start with a funky framework, but migrated their own components instead of using the PowerSoft Foundation class or some other framework. They did develop the application using object-oriented techniques, including encapsulation, which is good news because the OLE code to connect to and interact with the OnBase thick client was encapsulated into a single non-visual object. More good news. As I mentioned, there was only one single component required to interface with OnBase, though I did have to touch many components during development. And while the current standard is PowerBuilder 2025, the client isn't there yet. They have, however, upgraded the application to the latest build of PowerBuilder 2022. My good friend and colleague, John Strano, performed some upfront conceptual work which made my job significantly easier. He created a pairing list to show the thick client calls and the corresponding REST API calls. He found, downloaded, and educated me on Postman XML with the OnBase REST API calls. In case you're not familiar with Postman, it's a fantastic tool that allows you to create, execute, and interrogate REST calls, among other things. He found and incorporated the excellent UJSON component by George Broadbeck, and he created a proof of concept with much of the initial work done. Our solution was to start where we were. We took the time to look over the original PowerBuilder component, NVOB, to see what made it tick. Then we inherited from that component to create two new components, NVOB OLE for the existing OLE OnBase code, and NVOB API for the new REST API code. Next, we created a global function to instantiate the appropriate descendant. We had to replace all of the create NVOB calls with the function, which meant changes to 13 separate objects in the client code. Next, we migrated the OLE specific code to the NVOB OLE object. We also created a set of private get and set methods for the generic code. As you might guess, we tested this while we worked just to make sure nothing broke. That previous slide makes it sound simple, but it wasn't. We encountered quite a few obstacles during development. First and foremost, as I've already mentioned, there isn't a one-to-one correspondence between the OLE and REST calls. Also, OnBase stores keywords for each document. The OLE methods allow storing keywords one at a time, where the REST API methods store and retrieve all the keywords at once. Another interesting thing is that the OnBase OLE methods export documents to a temporary file, which the client then moves to where it needs to be. The API code pulls the document into a blob on the client side, which the client code is then responsible for saving to where it needs to be. With large documents more than 100 megabytes, it caused an out-of-memory error. We also discovered, in trying to resolve that out-of-memory error, a bug in the Highland software when trying to get documents a page at a time. After trying the page at a time, we tried getting large documents a chunk at a time, which is slower than the OLE methods. Part of this was due to the way the REST API deals with the documents. It exports them to a folder on the server, then sends them to the client. The antivirus software on the server blocked that export until the document could be reviewed, which slowed down the export quite a bit. When we forced the antivirus software to ignore the folder, it sped up retrieval significantly. Let's take a look at the application. The screen on the left is a document management panel for a case. The screen on the right is a detail for the document highlighted on the left. What do you notice? Can you tell whether this is the OLE thick or thin client? That's the point. All right, let's take a look at the code. Let's start with connecting to OnBase. In the OLE code, it's a single call to the MZ launch and connect function on the OLE method. The result is a session handle, which is then passed to almost every other OLE call. Now let's compare the OLE code to the REST API code. In the case of the OLE code, we make a single call which results in a session handle. The REST API uses the PowerBuilder token request object to create an OAuth 2.0 request that results in a bearer token. Like the session handle in the OLE code, the bearer token is passed to every other REST API call. For OnBase, the authentication server is not the same as a document management server. Uploading a document in the OLE code is a set of several steps. Make sure the user can create and reindex or set the keywords in the documents. Initialize the archive, which creates a storage for the document, and then upload the document. Note the MZ can I access methods. There is no corresponding REST API call to determine the permissions. After initializing the archive and adding the file, we execute the archive, which uploads the document. We then need to end the archive process. The result is a document handle. In the REST API thin client, there's 3 steps. First, we prepare the storage, then we upload the document, then we archive the document. Starting with prepare, like the OLE code, the REST API code prepares the storage by passing the file extension so OnBase knows what type of document is being saved, and the file size so OnBase knows how much storage to allocate. Note it's the session cookie. It's created on the first call to OnBase and must be passed to every other call in OnBase. In my code, the session cookie is stored in session object, which I'll show you in the demo. If the prepare call is successful, meaning return code 201, a set of JSON code is returned in the response body. The JSON contains a file stage GUID, a unique value that points to the details of the file being loaded. This value is also passed to the second step, the upload routine. The JSON also contains the part size and part count, which tells how big each chunk is and how many times the upload process needs to be called. Like the previous call to prepare the storage area, the upload requires a bearer token and session cookie. Unlike the OLE code, the REST API code is responsible for opening and reading the document. This block of code shows opening the document and determining the number of parts. Because the document may be stored in parts, the document is read in chunks. As a result of the document being read in chunks, we loop through the parts, reading each chunk, then passing it to OnBase along with the file stage GUID and the file part number, which this code shows. The document is pieced together on the OnBase server. If the code is successful, we get a 204 and we continue looping until all the parts are loaded. If not, we exit the loop and return an error. The error text is stored in the response body. For brevity's sake, error handling is not displayed here. The final step in the REST API process is to archive the document and get the document handle. This is essentially a message to the OnBase server that all parts have been uploaded and the document can be processed. The payload contains the details of the document like file type, comments, and keywords. I'll show you how we created that in the demo. Successful result of a call is JSON, which contains the document handle. Once a document has been stored in OnBase, we still need to be able to extract a document. In OLE, it starts with initializing a query. In this case, we're getting all the documents by a document handle, which results in a single document. We can create a variety of different queries, all of which are similar to a database cursor and result in an internal to OnBase list of values that the client can then refer to one at a time. In this case, we execute the query and use it to get the document info and details. We use that information to get a document using the MZ get document page, which extracts a document, stores it in a temporary location, and returns the location in the ls file path variable. If necessary, a handle to any used memory, which needs to be released by the MZ free memory handle method, is also returned. Once we've extracted the document, we also need to end the query, freeing that part of the memory. Our client copies the file from the temporary location to the target location as represented by the AS file path name. Extracting a document using the REST API is a single call. Remember, OnBase versions the document, meaning that you have revisions and renditions. Revisions are a variant of the document with the same file type and keywords. Renditions are the same document saved in a different format, for example, PDF instead of Word doc. In this example, getting the latest rendition of a document. Also remember, we could be breaking the document up into chunks. This means that we need to tell OnBase to send back the desired chunk as represented by the byte range request header. In the case of the REST API, we've turned off the timeout because of the length of time it took to get large documents. The result of the get document call is a blob that is then saved in another client routine to the target location. If the response code is 200, that means we got the whole document. 206 means we got a chunk. In this demo, I'll do a quick code review, then upload a document and extract using the OLE model and the API model. Ready? Let's go. All right, here we go. We've got PowerBuilder 2022 R3, build 3441, the latest build out there as of this recording. And here's the library that has all of the OnBase objects in it. These particular two OnBase, the data windows. The create OnBase function, as you saw earlier, it's real simple. Just gets the run option from the INI file and instantiates the appropriate descendant. We've got some structures here for parsing keywords that I'm not going to get into. It's a little bit more than we have here. And the session structure that handles sessions for the thick client. The thin client uses this session object, which again, I'm not going to get into. It's a little bit more than we need to get into here. Alrighty, so the descendant object, which is where all this started with most of these functions. I should say about half these functions. Some of them have a placeholder in them. Some of them actually have code. Let's take a quick peek. So the check doc handle is a function that was there that actually moved the code to the descendant. Check session, same thing. The cleanup, same thing. The connect session and connect test, again, same thing. And then now we get this create document copy record, which actually stores information in the database. So this is a generic or common function between the two descendant objects. Alrighty, let's take a quick look at the descendants. I'm going to open both of them, the API and the OLE. And I am going to tile them so we can see them both at once. If we look at the functions, we can see, for example, this check doc handle is one that, as we looked at a moment ago from the ancestor, is now coded in the descendant. So you're going to see this type of stuff quite a bit. And we've got some functions like this, again, create document copy record, that has all of the code in the descendant. Then there's functions like this one over here, this archive document, which is private to the NB-OB API. That's specific to the API code. We've got, again, this create, DQ, payload, etc. So let's take a quick look at some of the functions. Specifically, I wanted to look at the register or upload functionality. So in OnBase, to add a document is called registering a document. I'd like you to notice in both cases here, there it is. In both cases, all the code is in the descendant. So I can open either one. go to the descendant code, sorry, the ancestor code, and you can see that the functionality is all there, but it's pretty generic. One of the things it does is it calls this FNO reposit document. I'm going to flip over here to the API code, and you'll see that in the API code, the reposit document is actually, let me go to this one, it actually has ancestor and descendant code. If I go to the descendant code here, now we're looking at some code that is very specific to the API. It actually, in fact, it calls these three functions, prepare, upload, and archive, which we saw in the slides earlier. Let me flip over here to the reposit code. It's basically essentially putting it in a repository. On the OLE or client code, you can see it's calling these can I access, and then it goes ahead and calls the initialize the archive the page, etc. These kinds of things that we looked at earlier. In terms of extracting a document, we do it via the OF or FNO extract code. Extract document by copy ID and extract document. Let's take a look at both sides. Kind of going through this kind of fast for time's sake, but in this, so in both cases, we're doing essentially the same thing. We're just checking the variables, getting some values. And now here, we start to have the API specific code. And over here, again, the API specific code. One of the interesting things in the OLE code, the extract document by copy ID and the extract document are separate functions, and they actually do separate things. They basically do essentially the same, but slightly different. In the OLE code, sorry, in the API code, we actually call down here, we get the document ID, and we call the FNO extract document code to actually get the document. So the code is again separate but similar. Alrighty, let's take actually a look at seeing it in operation. Let me close both of these up. And I'm going to come down here and open up the INI file, and you can see here in the INI file we've actually got this run option set to OLE. So I'm going to start with the OLE code and go ahead and get some documents. Alrighty, let me get this started. I'm going to pause here. Alright, we're logged in, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you the screens that we looked at in the slides a moment ago. That was the case document browser. And here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and load some documents. Now, there's several ways to register or load documents into the system, but we're going to use this batch registration because it's a little bit quicker and easier. So down here in this doc upload folder, which is where we're pointing to up here in the showing the source folder, in the doc upload folder, we've got two documents, a test doc file medium and a test PDF file large. I'm going to tell OnBase or tell the system to go ahead and copy them as opposed to moving them. If I move them, what will happen is they'll both be documents will be loaded into the system, followed by them being deleted from here. And I want to leave them in here so that I can be set up for the next time around. When we go to extract them, they'll get extracted to this doc temp folder. All right, I want to associate them with the same case we're looking at, which is this one. All righty, let's go ahead and start the upload. Here we go. Acquiring the copy ID. First one is archived. This one will take a little bit longer. It's the larger file. One of the things about the OnBase client versus the OnBase REST API code is the OnBase client does most of the work, so there's not very little feedback for us. In terms of the OnBase REST API code, most of the work's done on the Automation client side. There we go. And so there's a lot more feedback. All right, so both documents were loaded. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this, exit out of this, come back over here, and there they are. So I'm going to go ahead and extract them. You do that just by clicking on them. It's going to open them in the default display tool. So in this case, in Word, you can see the document was exported over here. Get a little bit larger. And this one is going to open up in Microsoft Edge. All right, close that up. And lastly, but not least, I'm going to go ahead and delete these so I can prepare for the next time. So to do that here, we click on this maintain document, which is the same window that opened up when we loaded stuff up. And I'm just going to click on delete. We're not actually deleting the document. What we're doing is breaking the link to it. Users don't have the right to delete documents in OnBase for us. And so we're breaking the link so we can't see it, but they get purged after 90 days. All right. Now I'm going to reset and we'll go ahead and show you the REST API code. I'll be back in just a second. All right, I have gone ahead and reset. I deleted all the files from the .temp folder. I exited OnBase and restarted and changed it to the OnBase cloud. You can see that up here in the title bar. Let's go ahead and do the exact same things. So I'm going to start by coming here over to Document, Batch Registration, same folder, change it once again to copy, select the case, and let's go. Oh, I'm going to move this over so you can see things. All right. Now you can see that there's a lot more feedback. And it does seem to be a bit faster. There we go. All right, let me once again, exit out of here. Exit. Come down here. I'm going to refresh this screen. 2 more documents. There they are. There's one. You can see it was created here. And here's number 2. And one of the different things is with OnBase, it stores the documents in a temp folder. With the OLE, with the REST API methods, we actually copy them out to the target folder just with a .temp extension and rename them when it's successfully loaded. And here you go, loaded back in there. All right. So that's all done. Let's go ahead and do the last piece, which is to delete the documents. And same basic behavior. And there you go. One quick thing I wanted to show you before we call it a day, I'm going to get back into the code. And I wanted to show you the REST API code that we use to actually connect to OnBase. Remember that within the OLE code, we use the launch and connect. In the OLE code, the REST API code, we actually call this get bearer token method, which creates a OAuth 2.0 connection. So we populate the request and call the OnBase Auth service function, which is, there we go, the OAuth client, to passing it the token and the response, which it then returns the response, and we should have, as a result of that, the bearer token. With the bearer token, we actually can pass that to every other call. So, for example, they come down here. I'm just going to choose one. How about this extract document? That's called get document. Hold on. So here I'm getting the bearer token and the lifespan from the code, and then I am coming down here and setting the bearer token, and I also set this session cookie. In this case, I'm actually storing it, but I set the session cookie right here. If the session cookie is empty and I set it, this actually will cause the code to fail. Session cookie is populated on the first call and then has to be passed to every other call. There's actually some code called Heartbeat that I'm not going to show you here, but that actually runs somewhere between 60 and 90 seconds to just make sure that we stay connected. Alrighty, that is it for this little piece of the pie. I'm going to pause here for a second so I can get you back to the slideshow. Alrighty, so this was a fun project, and as you can see, we're able to replicate the existing functionality using the REST API. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always do that online at the community.appian.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter or X now, and of course YouTube. We're always available, always looking forward to chat. Alrighty, now it's your turn. What questions do you have?
Now is Q&A time. Welcome to join our live Q&A Zoom meeting with the presenter. You'll find the Zoom meeting link at the top of the chat panel and also in the resources area below. Just click and join us live. You can enter the meeting from the Zoom app or your browser. Just type your name and click Join. You'll be in a waiting room until the meeting starts, and you'll join automatically once it begins. Now that you're in, you have 10 minutes to ask the presenter any questions about this session. Don't miss the chance.